Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. We are on Open Source Friday today. Thank you for all joining us to hear and meet Tim from Open WebUI today. My name is Kevin Crosby. I lead our open source funding programs here at GitHub. And we're excited. Today is a great day to hear and meet Tim. Tim, would love for you to do an introduction to yourself and a little bit of your journey into open source. I think you're muted. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And hey, I'm Tim from Open WebUI. And I've just been shipping new features and just working hard for Open. Do I just explain what Open WebUI is first and then?
Yeah, go ahead. Give an introduction to yourself, a little bit about your background into open source and how you got into building Open WebUI. That'd be a great kickoff.
Great. So yeah, when I first started Open WebUI, I was based in Canada, but now I've just been traveling. And just about myself, or
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me about your journey. So when we first met before the GitHub Accelerator, you were just building Open WebUI. You were still kind of like coming out of early day features and kind of kicking it off. But tell me a little bit of like the origin stories of Open WebUI.
Right. So Open WebUI started off as like a personal project of mine because at the time of when I first created the project, like we didn't have any, local interfaces where you can use to interact with like local AI models. So I was like, okay, if it doesn't exist, might as well just go out and build it for myself. And ever since I just adding new features and more people started to use it, and it just became into a much larger project than what it used to be.
Yeah, maybe like talk a little bit about what the project's all about. Like, what does it mean to have a web UI for local or AI models, and kind of what are you trying to solve with the project specifically?
So Open WebUI is an extensible and is a user-friendly self-hosted AI interface, which means you are able to host Open WebUI on any of the deployments as long as you can run an operating system. So, for example, if you're, I use this as like an extreme example, but let's say if you're out in outer space on Mars, and if you were to use like any of the AI models, like if it's hosted on Earth, it would usually, it would take at least 40-20 minutes just to get a response from your AI model. Whereas if you were to use Open WebUI, you have everything hosted locally, which means you're able to use it anywhere in any of the air-gapped environments.
I love it. And, maybe share a little bit around kind of what inspired you to actually start the project yourself. You gave a little bit of like, this didn't exist. And so you kind of started as a personal project, but like, what were you doing with models, and what did you kind of find like, oh, this problem needs to be solved?
I guess the main thing here was like all of the interfaces, or just any of the interfaces that we had previously, was all privately hosted, hosted externally, which means you do not have control over your own data. And I wanted to have full control over like anything that I put in. So, for example, I personally would not feel comfortable uploading all of my darkest secrets to any of the privately hosted interfaces. Whereas like with Open WebUI, I can just upload whatever I want, and then I can have like a conversation with these like AI models, and it will be able to provide me with like much personalized, much better response than any generic models would.
I love it. And, we've talked about this a little bit. So it kind of started as like individuals having like a private local AI companion, and then also having a self-hosted friendly interface. Like, but before Open WebUI, to have this, you kind of had applications that use this, or you had to essentially use it within like a CLI or something like that to actually like build. And it's much more technical to be able to integrate and use the model, but with the ability to use locally on a device, like you have AI at your fingertips, right? Like that's kind of the biggest thing that kind of you brought to market here. Maybe shifting just a little bit about it, but like talk a little bit about what Open WebUI is in terms of like the features and capabilities. Like you talked about self-hosted, it's kind of a friendly interface. But what sets it apart from other projects that are kind of building interfaces with AI models? And what features and functionalities are you like really excited about that people use and kind of play around with?
One thing that I do want to highlight here is I think most of the interface that's out there, they're mainly geared towards like a single user only, meaning like, for example, if you're a desktop application, then these applications are usually purpose built for you as like the main driver, and then you only. Whereas like what we're focusing on is, our focus is like on-prem, which means you're able to host this either on your like home lab server and give access to like your family members, your friends, and a lot of people can use the same one deployment that you have, and you can configure a lot of permissions, and some of the models you necessarily do not want to give to your kids. Some of the
Sure.
knowledge bases you want to keep to yourself, instead of being public to all of your friends. So I guess I'll say role-based access control is like the main thing that we that would be like a differentiator.
I love hearing that. And maybe shifting just a little bit here. Can you walk us through kind of the project's tech stack? What does it look like in terms of how it interfaces locally with your device? And then maybe along that too, like why did you make some of the architectural decisions that you initially built the project
Great.
around?
So our backend is built with Python, and the front end is with Svelte. Well, the front end, I just personally love using Svelte for front end tasks, and it just they've done a great job. So yeah, that was like the main reason. I just love using Svelte. As for the back end, it was more of a deliberate choice, because most of the AI libraries or like any of the AI researchers, like they most of the time they use Python, which means if we were to, because we have like this thing called functions, which is like a plugin system, and it's like a pure Python. So you can just write your own custom plugin with Python, and you can just like import any of the cutting edge AI libraries or tools, and then integrate it directly to Open WebUI. So that has been like the main reason why we decided to use Python, and it's also very easy to just do pip install Open WebUI. So yeah, Python is so ubiquitous. It just makes sense that we opted
user friendly, easy to pick up. It's definitely a very common language to start with. Maybe just diving in a little bit deeper, like when you were first launching this, talk about a little bit of like the technical challenges that you may have had, kind of like integrating and building on top of these models, and then any learning moments that you could share that maybe someone else that was either early building in their own open source project or thinking about building something with AI models, like any learning moments throughout your journey.
That's a good question. So local models specifically, or as in just like AI?
Yeah, like local models, maybe starting with, because I actually think like local models being able to like interface with the computer hardware from like NPU, GPU, and CPU to kind of like working locally, like just some of those technical challenges that you may have encountered early on, or even like today, like any challenges that you're still seeing.
So one thing about local models is like, because the model size is very like you start from, for example, like a 2B model all the way up to 400B model. So there's like a wide variety of like the model selections, and like the performance of these different models, like they vary significantly. So some of the models support like tool calling, some of the models just do not support anything at all, and just like it's barely a large language model. So yeah, that has been like our main challenge for us, is like, hey, we need to support all of these models starting from like a 1B all the way up to 400B, or like even a privately hosted model. And people expect using local models, using Open WebUI, that they can just have like a ChatGPT like experience when they're using like a maybe 2V model and expecting like the result to be the same. It's usually not the case. So I guess yeah, a lot of variation is something that you need to think about, especially working with local models. But I mean, things are getting much better these days, especially like, the release of like GPT OSS and, like Olmo models. They've done a great job, and Mistral models. So, I expect this trend to continue, and things to get much better later down the line.
Maybe talking a little bit around like different model architectures, like how much effort goes into making them work throughout the
Mhm.
interface, and like how much goes into configuration so that, to your
Mhm.
point, maybe it's not a chat GPT full experience out of the box, but
Right.
like, making it so that it's a delightful experience.
So, the thing about Open WebUI from our end is like we mainly rely on OpenAI compatible endpoints. So, for example, if you were to plug in VLLM or Llama CPP, you can do so by just like hosting, you know, on your infra, and then just plugging in the OpenAI API compatible endpoints to Open WebUI, and so a lot of those like hard problems are abstracted away from us, which is
Mm.
like made it a lot easier for us to integrate with these different models. But yeah, I think having a day one support for some of the models, because like for example, if you're using Llama CPP, there are a lot of knobs that you need to configure in order for you to like, for example, plug it into OpenWebUI, or just like trying to build Llama CPP like binaries on your end. It can be easier. So I think a lot of people opt in for Llama, and they've done a tremendous job at like streamlining the download process and managing models, which we natively support on OpenWebUI as well.
That makes sense. That's awesome. Maybe shifting gears just a little bit, but like let's talk about the community aspect
Mhm.
of Open Web
Mhm.
UI. I think one of the things when I first met you was I was really excited to see how much you lean into the community and how much they lean into you. But can you talk
Right.
about how that has shaped the not only the trajectory of Open Web UI, but
Mhm.
like how you think about building in the open?
So yeah, I mean, we're super grateful that like we have such a big and supportive community. Um, so we obviously we have our main roadmap that we want to push out, and people obviously contribute by just making issues and whatnot, and some of them are actionable, some of them are not, but like it's always good to have more eyes on the project so that we can improve upon what we currently have. And we also have a community platform. I'm not sure, like most people know about Open WebUI and they use Open WebUI, but they don't really, they either have tried to use it in the past and they didn't have a good experience, or they use it and they are potentially actively using it, but we're actually putting in a lot of resources and engineering efforts into like making the community platform better. And we can go into the details during our demo session, but basically it's like a repository of like model presets, tools and functions, and prompts. And yeah, we have like a streamlined process of sharing your presets from Open WebUI to our community platform, and that's like the best way that you can contribute to our project as well.
I love that. Can you maybe just talk about your approach to bringing on either new contributors or users of the
Mhm.
platform?
We don't actively go out and try to find contributors, but I guess like one thing we do is we just try our best to just ship out quality features and fixes, and support whatever the latest and the greatest. So that has been the working strategy for us. But I think yeah, just us being like one of the top start repos on GitHub, I think that also definitely helps with just trying to find contributors and whatnot. So yeah.
Love it. And then maybe just double clicking, like any notable community driven features or ideas that have kind of made it into the project to date,
Hmm.
or even things that people have requested and you're like, oh, this is actually really interesting. And you've like brought it in because you got enough community feedback that they
Right.
should integrate the feature set.
I would say pretty much everything on Open WebUI is community driven, if that's the definition. Because like obviously we have our internal roadmap, but then we ask we have the main roadmap, and then we get feature requests from the community, and then if it looks good, and if it aligns with our current roadmap, we merge it in. Like we try to add those in like as soon as possible. So yeah, I mean, GitHub has made that process like as seamless as possible. People just create issues or feature requests on the issue section, and we just take a look, and if it makes sense, we assign ourselves, and then we just ship it.
I love it. Like that's one of the coolest things about building in the open. You're able to,
Right.
literally get real-time feedback and say, hey, this makes sense for the project and bring it in. Really, really cool. Maybe just double clicking a little bit more, like let's talk about any recent major milestones or features that you've kind of launched, or even things coming in the future months that you're excited about and you want the community to hear a little bit about today.
So I mean, we've definitely made a lot of like optimizations throughout our backend and front end. So what's currently live in the dev branch is like we have a knowledge base feature where you can upload files and create like a knowledge base, and then you can attach that to your model or agent and have a conversation with your knowledge base pretty much. And before it, we had the back end and the front end designed in a way that is not super scalable, but we got to it, and it should be. We're hoping to push out the new release hopefully tomorrow or the day after. So a lot of enhancements in general, or optimizations. So that has been like the main thing that we've been working on. One other thing is like the community platform I want to emphasize. Before, it used to be more of a static repository where people just upload, and it didn't have all that much of like community features. Whereas like what we're working on in our dev branch is like uploads and downloads and comments, and it's more of a proper community platform where you can engage with other Open WebUI users. So yeah, expect to see a lot of enhancements there. We have a lot more features in the works, in the pipeline, but we'd rather announce them once it's actually launched.
That's awesome. I love it. And how do you maybe talk about the future of Open WebUI and where that goes? I mean, it seems like as you add some of these community-oriented features, how do you see that evolving? And then also, how does the open source component of that kind of like intertwine with the community that's building on top of it?
I mean, the community and like the open source aspect of Open WebUI is like the central and the root. What is pretty much the reason why Open WebUI community platform exists in the first place. If it wasn't for the community, we would not be able to ask for these prompt presets or model presets, or even like tools and functions that communities has developed. And having that rich ecosystem is what makes Open WebUI great. So we're going to be continuing to like shipping new features to core Open WebUI and make it the best AI interface out there. So it makes sense for pretty much starting from like an individual to like a extremely large scale enterprises. It makes sense for them to just adopt Open WebUI internally, and we'll use that as like a main growth efforts, and we'll do our best to provide more value with community platforms so that it makes sense for them to like naturally join our community platform and contribute potentially their chat logs or any of their users information, which then later down the line, as like a downstream task, we should be able to use to synthesize new insights, and we can have that flow back to like the model builders and pretty much everyone in the ecosystem.
I love hearing that. That's great. Maybe let's shift into the demo and just kind of start to see the platform, what it looks like, how people can interface with Open WebUI. That'd be great.
Sounds good. I'll share my screen here. Cool. So yeah, right here is like the community. Well, it's like the landing page / community platform. If you just go to openwebui.com, this is like the first thing you'll see. And if you click on docs, I mean, you could click on get your Open WebUI as well. This will take you to our GitHub repo. And if you click on docs, it has more information here. And where you can download Open WebUI is you just click on, if you have Docker installed, this is like the most straightforward way of installing Open WebUI. You just click on this, you just copy the command line, and then you just paste it into your terminal. And that's it. You don't have to do anything else. And then you would just have Open WebUI up and running within seconds. And
that's awesome.
I'll show you what Open WebUI
Maybe
looks like.
as you're thinking about that, for folks that don't know like how to use Docker today, like how does that
Right.
work? Can you talk through just like the technical components there, so people can understand like if they haven't used Docker, what they need to think through?
So Docker, they also have like a Docker desktop application. So it's also pretty straightforward. You can just Google Docker. It also depends on your environment, obviously. If you're hosting it on your like a home lab server, then things will be different. But if, let's say, for example, if you're using it on your laptop, you can just search Docker desktop, and then the first thing, you can just click on the first thing you see on Google, and then you just install the Docker desktop application. And that's pretty much it. Like once that's installed, you're ready to install Open WebUI and, you know, plethora of other open source applications.
Sounds good. That's good context though. Thank you.
So yeah, and this is how you get started. Or there are also other ways you can go about installing it. And if you already have Python installed, you can just do pip install Open WebUI as well. And some folks, prefer this approach because, like, this is just like running on their, there's no overhead when it comes to like running a containerized environment. So some folks prefer this, but we'd recommend just like using a containerized environment. It just makes it super easy for us, like troubleshoot in case there's an issue.
Sure.
So yeah, so once you install Open WebUI, this is like it'll first ask you to sign up, and all of it is saved on your device. Nothing gets sent to our servers. So the credentials that you create on Open WebUI instance is all hosted on Open WebUI on your server. And once you create, this is like the first thing you'll see. I mean, obviously, you would have to potentially, if you don't have a Llama or any of the other OpenAI compatible endpoints configured, you will not have any of the models. But let's say you do configure these, this is the first thing you'll see.
And so just to double click on that, so like essentially people, they can use Ollama's models under the hood to essentially run the applications. Got it. Cool.
And yeah, and Llama is supported. You could use Llama CPP, you could use VLLM, as long as like the model inference provider supports an OpenAI compatible endpoints, it's supported. So you can just plug that in, and then yeah, just get started with Open WebUI.
Awesome. I'm gonna highlight this thing right here though. That it says model plus Ollama plus Open WebUI. It's awesome. It's just a great comment to see. So thank you.
Great. No, so yeah, here you have the private model. So right now, I have this configured to connect it to OpenAI. And these two models are actually connected to my local Llama instance. So I'll just give you a brief front. Yeah, I'll just show you, hey, you can use GPT-OSS. This is, you're using Llama as like a model inference provider. And yeah, you can just get started and you can just ask questions. And yeah, pretty much everything you would expect on like a, enterprise grade AI interface. And you have pretty much everything you would need here. And one other thing I want to highlight is we also have this thing called Arena model. And not many people know about this, but what this does is it will try to randomly select from the model selection that you have here currently, but obviously, blindfolded. So you can ask questions. You can actually add two different models, and you can ask a question here. Tell me a fun fact about the Roman Empire, and this one's thinking.
I love that. You can compare live responses from the models. And in this case too, you don't actually know what models are being used under the hood, right?
Yeah. Until you leave a good response or a bad response, feedback is not going to tell you which one's which. So I'll show you here. Okay, yeah, this one looks more comprehensive. So I'm just going, hey, this is a good response. And I will tell you, hey, it was actually a Quen 3 model. And once you leave a response here, you can go to the admin panel and like the evaluation section, and it will show you all the different feedbacks. So yeah, apparently we just had a conversation with Quen 3 and GPT-OSS, and it will give you like a leaderboard of, hey, this model performed better than the other model. And yeah, so you have like a nice dashboard of which models are a better fit for your specific use case. And
for your Arena like router selection, like did you build that yourselves, or are you using any other open source components to build the like model selection?
So this is all built in. There is a way you can go about building this using like a plugin system. So we have this thing called functions where you can create like these plugins to extend the capabilities of Open WebUI itself. And there's a way you can go about doing that, but the one that we're seeing here is like a built-in to Open WebUI. And yeah, one other thing I wanted to highlight here is like I want to actually demonstrate like the community platform and show you what you can achieve with.
Before you jump off that, I also want to, there's a question that someone asked real quick, is that, is this similar to like a agent creation platform, like in the ability to do that?
For the functions?
In terms of like, yeah, the functions, I think like specifically to the functions, like, do you see that as like people can create their own like agents with functions, or is that something different?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot of, enterprises that are using functions features to like create their own agents. But I guess if they're asking for like a, node-based GUI editor for like creating these agents, we currently do not have that yet, but it is already being used to create these different AI agents in the wild.
That makes sense. That's awesome. Great. Super cool.
And yeah, I mean, speaking of agents, you can also create like custom models by selecting from, the model you have here, and you can specify like the system prompt. You can attach knowledge, upload files, and etc. etc. So this is something that you could do. You could go to the knowledge base part, and then you can create your own knowledge base. I'll say GitHub and create knowledge, and this is where you can upload whatever the file that you want. You can upload all your confidential and private files here, and nothing leaves your device.
That's cool.
And you can like reference this in the chat and whatnot, and you can create prompts and you can create tools. And this is the part I want to highlight with like the community platform feature. So where the community platform comes in like handy is that you can create like your account and sign in, and you be presented with your feed, Open WebUI community platform feed. And I actually want to look for a very specific tool that has been uploaded this week. And there's this tool called Flappy Bird minigame. And you can actually play Flappy Bird on Open WebUI with this specific tool. So what you can do is you can just click on Get, and you do have to specify where Open WebUI is running, which in this case is localhost for me. And you just click on Import, and you'll be presented to this specific screen, like a code editor. And I already have this installed, so I'm just gonna, exit from the screen. But you can see here, I already have it installed. And I'll just show you how you can activate this specific tool. You just go here, and then you just click on Flappy Bird minigame, and then you can ask, hey, play Flappy Bird. And then it's gonna call a tool. So this is what's doing underneath the hood is like a function calling. And it is able to render an interactive UI element directly to Open WebUI. So you can see here, like you can actually play with this. Yeah, I'm not even gonna try to. Yeah, no, there's no point in trying this.
I mean, you can play Flappy Bird all day with that. I love it. I'm gonna spotlight another question, but someone asked a question around how do you add tools for specific models if they have capability for tools like web scraping, RAG, things like that. Like, can you customize the tools for specific models so they can be invoked differently? Yeah, love to hear a little bit about that.
No, yeah, 100%. So if you were to go on our community platform, one thing I want to highlight here is like we already have an existing list. Like this is like whole thing. So the main thing, the top one here is like web search. So you can implement your own web search implementation and then add that into Open WebUI. And what you can do, so if you go to like the model editor, you can see here like, hey, tools. You can click on this and then activate this by default. And then you have your folks, have your team members, interact with this specific. For example, I'll just call this like a Flappy Bird model, and I'll just choose GPT-OSS and save and create. And if you click on this, it will have Flappy Bird minigame enabled by default. So this is what you can do with web search and many other different tools. You can plug this into like, your own rack system, and we also have native MCP support as well. It's in the admin settings, and if you go to external tools, you can click on add connections, and the default type is Open API. But if you click on MCP, the one protocol that we support is streamable HTTP, so you can plug in your URL, you can specify the authentication spec. We support OAuth 2.1 as well. You can register to client and have like dynamic client registration and all of that. So pretty much everything you can think of is most likely supported.
That's super cool. And maybe kind of double clicking on like the tools and stuff, like have you find like Flappy Bird's a really good example, but like any other tools that you'd say are pretty interesting or notable that have been published recently that you want to spotlight?
Let's actually go over the list of like what people are using here. So memory enhancement, I know a lot of folks have requested for like a better built-in managed memory tool, because we do have it, but it's been in beta for ages. We'll get to it eventually, but
Sure.
yeah, I think memory is like also like a good example of like how people use like these tools and functions, and I think RAG is definitely like, or just like internal knowledge-based integration, especially with MCP, is like a main thing, main use case that we're seeing across like enterprises. So that's like obviously like the main thing. But from the community, you can just go on our community platform and take a look at what other folks are using. You can sort by this month. You can sort by this week. Full memory weather tool. I think this is probably like so this one also gives you like an active UI element. You can ask like, what's the weather like? And it will show you the weather widget. And yeah, I'd encourage everyone to go on the community platform. We're shipping a lot of different features. Right now we don't have upvotes and downvotes and comments, but it will be released hopefully by the end of this week.
I love it.
That's the target that we're aiming for.
Sounds good. I'm going to spotlight another question here, which is, what if you want to implement any agentic workflows? Like, how would you go about that?
What I would recommend from mine is actually, obviously there are many different ways you can go about implementing this. Like you could use functions and have your own, custom pipeline doing pretty much exactly what you want. Because like what function provides you is pretty much Python. So anything you can program in Python, you will be able to plug that in and have it exposed as a model or an agent. But what I would recommend, and based on what I've seen across, how most people use Open WebUI, is like, I'd encourage you to just create either an external tool using, MCP or Open API, tool servers, or you could also use like a built-in tool, which is like a lot more convenient, and have that linked or have that assigned to, for example, Flappy Bird, and have the model automatically decide when to invoke a function or when not to call it. I think that's, the most straightforward way, as well as like the most effective way, based on our experience.
That's great. I love it. Thank you. What else on the UI? Any other spotlights that you want to call out?
One other thing is we also have this thing called notes. So what we can do is like, I can just type. So what this use case stems from my personal desire to have this in, but one use case that I found is like, I just write notes here and then I just send a chat and I just save whatever I want to save on Open WebUI. But I was like, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I wasting these tokens on these AI models when I could just like actually have a proper note system? So I can just, create like a task list, chat with Kevin, and what else? GitHub is great. Download Open WebUI, and then you can just click on this and then create note. So you can call this like a to-do, to-dos. Let's just call it to-dos. And one thing you can do is you can actually reference notes from the chat. So I can just ask the model, hey, what do I need to do today? And then it will just like, load the chat, like the node content, and then it'll, tell you exactly what you need to do. Right now it's taking a while, but let's see. Yeah, based on your to-do list, today you should chat with Kevin. We should check that off the list. Note that GitHub is great. You might want to explore and use it. I'm daily driving it.
Yeah.
Download Open WebUI. Yeah, I have Open WebUI installed. So yeah, you can go with chats and then also just like, just check them all and then ask it again. Any more tasks? And then it should be able to refer to the node and then just notice that all the tasks has been completed, and then it will tell you, hey, all the tasks are completed, and okay, let's take a look. No, according to the list, all tasks have been already completed. So this is like one thing that you can use on Open WebUI. These are still in beta, so we're actively working towards it, adding new features. And yeah, I would just encourage everyone to just go on our documentation page and try to explore the different features. And like the best way to engage with us is like just on Discord and GitHub. You can create discussions, you can create issues, and that's the best way to reach out to us. And
that's awesome. I love it. Any other last minute call outs that you want to make before we wrap up? And definitely, I think I would encourage people to test it out. Go to your repo, your Discord. But yeah, any other things you want to call out for the community?
We're just very super grateful to have such a supportive community and such a large, wide user base as well. And that really helps us to, strive for the better. And like, if it wasn't for the community, like we would not be as motivated to, consistently, ship out these like, great features and community like enhancements. And, community is what makes, Open WebUI great. And I really appreciate GitHub for just creating this amazing platform where the contributors and like just active users and like the maintainers to just come together and just create something beautiful and amazing. And we're not stopping here. We're not stopping anytime soon. We're maybe like 5% done with what we actually want to build out. So yeah, just keep your feature requests coming. Feel free to contribute. The best way you can contribute is like using Open WebUI and just raising issues and potentially feature requests. You don't have to be like an engineer to actually contribute. Or you don't need to make a pull request. Just us having you as a user is like the best way you can support our community. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful Friday. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Great. All right. Have a good one, everyone.